A lot of news to discuss around the Miami Dolphins on this episode of Dolphins Today by Chad Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. Chris Grier made 4 roster moves. We'll break down each one of those. And then Tyreek Hill posted to social media. It looks like he got surgery. We'll talk about how his timetable is progressing if he is going to stay on the Miami Dolphins. We'll start with the roster moves. I tweeted them out earlier today. The Dolphins released 4 players. Long snapper Blake Ferguson, Ryan Cooper Jr., the corner, Neil Farrell, defensive lineman, and then Chasen Hines, an offensive lineman. Tweet this out. The Dolphins need to get under 90 players in terms of their active offseason roster. They were at 94. So they released 4. Expect Teron Armstead to officially be moved off of the roster as well. That would get them to 89. But this is why you follow me on Twitter, by the way, because, well, I cover the Dolphins on YouTube, but I also cover them on social media. So if you want wall-to-wall, up-to-date coverage around the Miami Dolphins, go give me a follow at Nic_Rohloff. All right, let's break down each player that the Dolphins released and what Miami is gaining and losing. Remember, Blake Ferguson was a pretty long-tenured Miami Dolphin. He was drafted 185th overall in the 6th round of that 2020 NFL Draft. And this one does have some financial implications as well. He signed a 3-year extension with the Dolphins in the 2023 offseason. And he had not only this year under contract, but in 2026 as well. So Miami releasing Ferguson, there was no dead money whatsoever. So it is pure savings for the Fins. They save $1.1 million in cap space for this upcoming season. And they also save $1.2 million in cap space for the 2026 NFL offseason. So they get about $1 or $2.3 million in savings over the next 2 seasons. But they do need to find a new long snapper. Good thing is, they already have one. Remember, after the draft, they signed Neelan Hibbett, the long snapper from Alabama, to a contract in undrafted free agency. So I think we can confidently say, going into OTAs, rookie minicamp, mandatory camp in June, and then preseason and training camp in July and August, that Neeland is going to be the projected long snapper for Miami. Now, if he ultimately does not cut it, I could see them just going out and signing a veteran, or heck, even bringing back Blake Ferguson. But at least as of right now, looks like Neeland is going to be your long snapper this upcoming year. Another player that was cut, Chasen Hines. This one does have some legs to it. He was a player that was with Miami, not just for this offseason, but he was with the Dolphins since 2023. He bounced up and down from the practice squad, released back to the practice squad, and he signed a future contract on January 7th with the Miami Dolphins. This doesn't really have any cap implications for Miami, only saves about $960,000, so nothing crazy there. But Hines is a player that I believed could have competed with some other people to potentially become one of the interior depth pieces on this offensive line. So Hines not obviously going to have that chance. He was released today. Then Neil Farrell, the defensive lineman. I think I consider this one a little bit of a surprise. He was signed to the Dolphins practice squad in 2024, but he got real action with the big squad. He was promoted to the active 53-man roster due to injuries and necessity in November, and he finished out the season on the active 53-man roster. Like Hines, he signed a future contract on January 7th of 2025, but he has a little bit more savings for the Fins on the books this upcoming year. Saves $1.1 million in cap space with him being released today. Remember, going into the NFL draft, Farrell was one of 3 defensive linemen on the roster. It was literally just Zach Sealer, Benito Jones, and Farrell. Farrell, though, no longer on the roster. You saw Miami draft 3 defensive linemen, Zeke Biggers, Kenneth Grant, Jordan Phillips, added a couple more in undrafted free agency. The last cut was Ryan Cooper Jr. Really won't talk about him much. He was signed to a future contract after NFL free agency. Actually picked him up on waivers from the Seattle Seahawks who released him. He did not get a chance to make this roster. Not shocked there when you added 3 players in undrafted free agency in the draft: Jason Marshall Jr., B.J. Adams, Ethan Robinson. There's a little bit of a crowded competition room. Miami needed to get rid of a guy. Ryan Cooper Jr. was the odd man out. So Miami released 4 players on this Thursday afternoon. Which player that got released was the most surprising in your book? Which player comes to mind? I'm going to give you my answer here in a second, but go down and answer yours right now. Mine is Neil Farrell. I know some people might say it's Blake Ferguson. I completely understand that. But when the Dolphins signed a UDFA long snapper, I mean, my little alarm bells were going off in the top of the dome here. Farrell, though, does shock me because he has played in the National Football League. He's been on the Chiefs, been on the Raiders, was on the active roster at the end of the year this past season for Miami. So I thought there was a reason the Dolphins kept him around. I thought they liked him. And even though they added 3 guys, I'm shocked that they got rid of Farrell over the likes of someone like Matt Dickerson. So a little bit of a shock by Farrell being released, but does save the Dolphins $1.1 million in cap space. All right, that does it for the roster news today. Let's get over to the injury news and Tyreek Hill because he had yet another surgery on his wrist that bothered him this past season, had a surgery earlier on in the offseason, and he took the Snapchat to showcase these photos. Sent it out a couple days ago saying, surgery number 2, let's go, thank you, Lord. And then after the surgery, tweeted out, obviously had some food with him, looked like he was under some influence of some type of medical drug, says mission successful. So it's good to know that Tyreek Hill had successful surgery on his wrist. We'll talk more about what this second surgery actually was for. And for the people that might be concerned with the second one, I would not have it be a concern of you. But before you do that, make sure you are subscribed. Daily Miami Dolphins coverage, 100% free. Don't got to pay a dime. Hit that sub button and turn on notifications to never miss a piece of content we put out. We're rolling out 2 videos a day right now in this offseason, so join the channel today. All right, the ESPN Dolphins beat reporter Marcel, who does an excellent job, shared some insight on the Tyreek Hill second surgery. Said that Hill had his wrist surgically repaired earlier this offseason after playing what Mike McDaniel described as a ligament issue. Hill's most recent surgery involved the removal of previously placed screws, a source told ESPN, and has been the plan all along. So I don't want Dolphins fans to be alarmed by the fact that Hill had a second surgery. It was always going to happen this offseason to replace some of those screws that helped repair the ligament in that wrist. And although I have been very, very critical of Tyreek Hill, I've been someone who does want to trade Tyreek Hill this offseason, you do have to give him a nice little salute because he could have quit. The Dolphins did not have a good season last year. He played through that wrist injury pretty much for half of the season. And the fact that he finished the season with that injury, and it's a wrist injury that required 2 separate surgeries this offseason, you got to give him a salute for powering through, especially when Miami was without Tua at some points in the season, but we're still fighting for a roster spot. So give him a little bit of credit there. We'll round out the show here in 1 second, but make sure you get your Miami Dolphins jerseys today. You could get the rookie Kenneth Grant. You could get Tua Tagovailoa, any color, any size, any style. Get yours today at chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. Never too early to start representing the Fins. One more time, chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. That link will be in the description and comments of today's video. When we finish the conversation on Tyreek Hill, I do want to send this out to folks as a reminder. Mike McDaniel told us that Hill was going to be recovering from this wrist surgery for most of the offseason. At the NFL Combine, when asked about Tyreek Hill's injury, he said that he probably will not resume football activities until around summertime going into training camp. Training camp obviously starts to take place in July, so I don't think we'll see Tyreek Hill start training again on the field, catching balls, running routes until late June, early July. But he will be ready for the season, assuming that he is still on the roster. And that's kind of where I want to finish the show. Does this wrist injury affect the potential trade of Tyreek Hill? There really hasn't been that many rumors on a Tyreek Hill trade other than the social media stunts that Hill himself has been playing. I don't think Chris Grier plans on trading him, even though I want one. And that's kind of where I see this being. Like, a lot of people in the comment section agree with me about wanting to trade Tyreek Hill. And as much as I want that to happen, for the Dolphins to kind of wipe their hands clean, save $15 million in cap space this season, 36 next season, and just move on and wipe yourself of the headache, I just don't see it happening. I think Mike McDaniel wants Tyreek Hill here. I think Chris Grier plans on having him here. Now, I will say this will be the final year of Tyreek Hill in a Dolphins uniform, which is what we'll talk about here in just a second. But when it comes to a trade, I do want to know your thoughts down in the comment section. Will Tyreek Hill play for the Dolphins in 2025? Get out those crystal balls, get out those predictions. Type Y for yes or type N for no. Tyreek Hill's been amazing for Miami. Despite the off-the-field concerns and distractions, I would label him as a top 5 Dolphins wide receiver of all time. It's crazy to say that because he's only been here for 3 years, but when you put up over 100 receptions per season on average, more than 1,500 yards over the last 3 seasons on average, and also putting up more than 8 touchdowns a year on average, that is ridiculously impactful and one of the most productive wide receivers in Dolphins history. And if he has another strong season, he's already going to be top 5 in Dolphins yards as a career. Like, that's how good he has been. Now, as I mentioned just a moment ago, though, this will without a doubt be Tyreek Hill's final season as a member of the Miami Dolphins. We have talked about his contract situation a lot over the past 2 months or so. And when you continuously look at the 2026 season, which, by the way, is his final year of his deal, so the only way that he remains on the team is if the Dolphins give him a contract extension, alleviating the cap pressure. Because in 2026, he has a $52.8 million cap hit. He's not going to play for the Dolphins on that number. And if the Dolphins just cut him going into the offseason before June 1st, you save $36.3 million, and you only have $15.5 million in cap in terms of dead. So, Tyreek Hill is not going to be a Dolphin next season unless they somehow work out an extension, which I do not see Miami doing due to Hill being on the plus side of 30, and like I have consistently mentioned, the off-the-field concerns and distractions. And this does take it to a good spot, though, because we know the Dolphins didn't have really any cap space this offseason to make big signings. They had the deal in the high 20s. They will have a solid amount of cap space entering the free agency period of 2026. If you ended up trading Jalen Ramsey this offseason after June 1st and then ultimately cut Tyreek Hill as expected next offseason to get that $36 million in savings, you will be entering the 2026 NFL free agency period with a projected $47.7 million in cap space. That does not count for potential extensions, potential restructures for Bradley Chubb, maybe a Tua Tagovailoa. So there is a world where Miami has close to $50-60 million in cap space next offseason, which could allow them to seriously upgrade the roster. We've already discussed how the Dolphins are projected to have 9 picks in the 2026 NFL Draft. This offseason, I'm talking next year in 2026, has the chance to really overhaul the roster, add in some young talent in the draft, some veteran players in free agency that can make an instant impact. Next offseason is going to be a fascinating one for the Dolphins. And that doesn't even discuss the possibility of Chris Grier not making those decisions, Mike McDaniel being gone, and if the Dolphins wanted to try to move off of Tua Tagovailoa. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that's why you subscribe to the channel, because we'll have you covered all season long in 2025. We'll be live for every game, every piece of news. We'll have you covered. And then we'll also be here in the 2026 offseason, which we slightly looked ahead at on today's show. So join the channel today for the top Dolphins coverage on YouTube.